Symfonos 5 is the last in the Symfonos series at the time of this recording. The goal is the same: get root access and capture the flag. Let's get to work. So double-click your OVF file, naming it Symfonos 5, click Import. Let's just make sure that this has the correct network settings. So right-click Settings, go to Network, and I see that it's set to NAT. We do not want that. We want it set to host only. So switch that up and click OK. Start it up. Once that's done booting up, let's switch over to our Kali Linux box. Over to your Kali Linux box, open up a terminal. Same thing as before, net discover. We have our IP address, so let's move on to the Nmap scan. This time we have SSH over port 22, HTTP over port 80, and LDAP over ports 389 and 636. So the first thing I want to check is port 80. Just minimize that, open up a web browser. All right, we have an image here. I'm just going to do Control U, check that out. Nothing interesting here, just the JPEG file. All right, so same thing as the other Symfonos boxes. What I want to do now is brute force some web directories. So back to our terminal here. I'm just going to clear that out. And we are going to use dir-b. Try to get some web directories if possible. Okay, so I have admin.php. Let's check that out. So I'm just going to right-click that, open link. Got to a login page. Okay, let's just try admin. All right, so see if we can get in there with a quick SQL injection, same as we did before. No, not that easy. All right. Well, let's just load up Burp Suite real quick and configure our proxy, see what we can do here. So, have our settings same as before. Just load up Burp Suite. Temp project, next, start burp. Go to your proxy tab. I'm just going to type in test. All right, here's our parameters here. So what I want to try first is SQL map. See if there are any SQL injection vulnerabilities. So I'm just going to put an asterisk here in both of these parameters for SQL map to go ahead and test them both. So I'm just going to right click there, copy to file. I'm going to name this SQLI1. I already named one that, but don't worry about that. So back to our terminal. We're going to use SQL map -R to read that file that we just created, SQLI1. And we're just going to use a level of 5 and a risk of 3. That's the highest it goes. And we're going to use the batch switch, which is going to say yes to every prompt. Just let that run. Okay, nothing good here. So let's clear out of that. SQL map is unsuccessful. I have to assume there's no SQL injection vulnerabilities at this point. So let's try dir-b again, this time modifying it a little bit. So I'm going to use a better word list here. All right, and now we're using -x.php to append .php to each request. So let's see if we get anything out of that. Okay, we have a couple of results here. got home.php and portraits.php. So I just intercepted both those because proxy interception is still on. And just forward that request. All right, so let's just take a look at them in this proxy real quick. We have home.php. All right. So we have 3 pictures here. All right. Looks like home.php redirected to admin.php. Let me just try to go to home.php again with the proxy on. Okay. Interesting. Let's take a look here. I'm just going to intercept that request to home.php, send it to the repeater. Okay. So I just want to analyze this redirection real quick. All right. So I see here in the HTML, there's a parameter URL. So I want to see if there's anything that we can do with that. All right, so I'm just going to include that in our request. So URL equals, and let's see if I can access any Linux files. Let's see, we have this well-known Etsy password file. Okay, great. So looks like we can abuse this URL parameter to read files within the file system. Now that we know that it's possible to leverage this LFI vulnerability to show Etsy password in the response before the redirect, I'm going to go ahead and try admin.php because we know that file exists. Okay, that did not work. Perhaps we need to specify the full file path. Generally, it is under var www HTML. So let's try that. Okay, there we go. We have the contents of admin.php down here. All right, so let's take a look at it. All right, we have this LDAP connect here. All right, so I see some useful information right here. This bind variable. All right, so what I see here is a hard-coded password in the LDAP configuration, as well as the domain controller information. So this is going to be useful for further attack against LDAP. Let's see what we can get out of this. Let's hop over here to a terminal, and we are going to use LDAP search, which is built into Kali Linux. All right, so I just pulled the information right out of that admin.php file that we found. So here's the password. There's the rest of the information. Port 389, port for LDAP, and the host, which is the Symfonos 5 IP address. Let's just send that query and see what happens. Okay, so I see the LDAP administrator's password here, and I also see a username, Zeus. And I see a user password that is apparently encoded in base 64. Let's just grab that string, Go to Burp Suite Decoder. Click Decode as base 64. All right. So I'm just going to copy that string there. And now we have a user and a password. We know that SSH is running on Symfonos 5. So let's go ahead and try to use these credentials to try to log in SSH with them. So back to our terminal. SSH Zeus at IP address of Symfonos. Yes, when prompted. Pasted that IP address. Boom, we're in. Type in sudo-l. We're going to see our sudo privileges. We have dpkg that we can run as root with sudo. That's very good. We can use this to escalate privileges. So we can use fpm to compile files of our own creation. This is going to be perfect for this use case. Let's go ahead and give that a shot. We're going to have to do that on our Kali machine. If you're not using the Kali VM I provided with this course, you're going to have to download and install FPM, which is simple. Just look it up online. So that being said, Control-Shift-T, go into a new tab, and we are going to create a very simple shell script that is going to spawn a bin bash shell. So if we can get this executed as root, this is going to escalate our privileges from the Zeus user to root. So let's try that real quick. First, we're just going to use V to create a shell script called privesc.sh. And all we're going to put in that file is /bin/bash. And we're going to save and quit that. Okay, and now we are going to use fpm. Let's take a quick look at this fpm command. We are just making a file named privesc, and we're using this shell script as our input file, and we're going to dump the output right here in the working directory. So just press enter with that, and I will show you the results in a moment. After a bit of waiting, we have our malicious.deb file. So let's bring that over to our target. We're going to use SCP for that. So SCP and name of the .deb file, Zeus at IP address of Symfonos 4. And we're just going to drop it in the home Zeus directory. And we need our password for Zeus. Just copied that over. All right, there we go. We're uploading the file. It's a little bit big. So just give it a second to finish. And once that's done, hop back over to our SSH session. All right, now we're going to use our sudo privileges. Sudo, and I'm just going to paste that right there. And we're going to specify the malicious.deb file that we just created. Boom. Now we're logged in as root. Pretty simple. That was a little bit quicker than the others. Just go and grab the flag. Very good. We're all done here. Symfonos 1 through 5 was pretty good. I liked them a lot. Lots of vulnerabilities to explore, and I had fun exploiting them. Let's move on to the next challenge.